panel is titled Social Hierarchies and Technology, and it aims to probe into the impact of the complex relations between technology and human society. Now I hand over the mic to Nawal to introduce all the speakers of this panel.
This panel will be chaired by Dr. Dhananjay. He is a faculty at the Central University of Gujarat, Gandhinagar. He works on cultural theory, political theory, and education. We have 3 speakers for this panel. Our first speaker is Anjali Chauhan. She is a doctoral researcher at the Department of Political Science, University of Delhi, and an independent journalist. She broadly engages with the issues falling at the intersection of gender and labor within the context of neoliberal capitalism. Our second speaker is Avik Sarkar. He is a PhD candidate at the Center for Political Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University, India. He is currently exploring the salience of the ideologies of Germanism and Lockeanism among the Muslim sheikhs in West Bengal crash crop economy. Our third speaker is Dr. Kamal Nayan Choubey. He is an associate professor in the Department of Political Science at Dayal Singh College, University of Delhi. He has written and published extensively on political theory and tribal discourse in India, and has also translated important contemporary text. Each presenter has 12 to 15 minutes. The discussant for the panel is Dr. Apala Wirtz. She is a political scientist. Her scholarly pursuit focuses on multiculturalism, human rights, and diversity. Through teaching and research, she inspires students to embrace curiosity, empathy, and resilience, exemplifying her commitment to fostering peace and understanding. Ma'am, you have 7 to 8 minutes. To begin, I would like to invite Dr. Dhananjay Roy to chair this session. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your generous introduction. And if you would like to notice, you would notice that from chair to speakers to discussant, all are from political science, or they are from political science background. And this was not by design, but it happened. And it happened naturally. But something is happening naturally is free from biases. Can it be extended to the realm of technology? And how to understand technology, which is a very, very, very important domain. And we had discussions since morning in the context of labor and democracy. Technology is also considered as a dead labor in the context of Marx theorization in Capital. And what happens in the case of ownership of dead labor for actual exploitation of living labor, thus inviting the resistance. Is a technology unmediated zone? Is technology a non-teleological concept? Does it create object or subject of object as well? I mean, these would be partly in their own way will be deliberated by Anjali Chauhan, Avik Sarkar, and Kamal Nayan Choubey. I request Anjali to start your presentation.
Hello everyone, I am Anjali Chauhan, PhD candidate at Department of Political Science, University of Delhi, and I am here to present my working paper titled The Human Cost of Gig Work: Unmasking Exploitation and Organized Resistance in Delhi NCR. In the month of April 2023, a sequence of protests, demonstrations and strikes by delivery workers called Partners by the company at Zomato-owned Blinkit, India's 10-minute delivery platform, highlighted the exploitative nature of gig economy. The protests emerged in the response to Blinkit introduction of a new payout structure for delivery workers, wherein the minimum payout was held to be rupees 15. The revised structure, as you can see on the PPT, it started with monthly salary for delivery workers when it was formerly Grofers. It was eventually taken over by Zomato and thus was changed to per order delivery system starting with rupees 50, which was subsequently reduced to 25. Last year it was reduced to 15 and this year it stands merely at 12. The revised structure also ties incentive to an effort-based pay policy. The workers were not formally informed about this new policy and how it would affect them. However, the effort that is stated by the company here, as they understood, meant how long the workers are working, especially during the peak hours, that is 11 to 6, how fast they are delivering orders, and how many orders they are delivering in a day. Since most of the Blinkit warehouses operate within the radius of 2 to 3 kilometers, it eliminates the further possibility of adding rates with respect to distance traveled. For several months, location including the national capital Delhi and surrounding areas of Delhi NCR, including Noida, Greater Noida, Faridabad, Ghaziabad, Gurugram, and various others, were transformed into hubs of protest and unrest. This year, to avoid such an unified widespread resistance by the workers, Blinkit did not bring a unified wage cut. The platform rather went for bringing the wage cut warehouse by warehouse. The unionists were of the opinion that this was deliberately done to reduce the possibilities of workers coming together and forwarding a unified front against the exploitative practices of the company. Amid such mounting discontent and resistance, in this paper I intend to address the following three issues. Firstly, broadly defining gig work within the broader framework of capitalism. Secondly, understanding the technological regime of gig work marked by digital surveillance, which this paper will understand by conceptualizing it in the form of digital panopticon. And lastly, by looking into the responses and efforts by App Karmchari Ekta Union affiliated to Act 2 CPI-ML and how it mobilized and advocated for gig workers' rights. For the methodology, this paper is a qualitative study rooted in ethnography, entailing comprehensive interviews with 15 Blinkit workers and 4 union workers from the union. It encompassed participant observation of warehouses operation, the organization of delivery workers, strike, their participation in May Day protest in Delhi during the period of April to June 2023 and January to February in 2024, which I did as a part of reports I wrote for Asia Labour Review, as you can see on the PPT. Next report will come hopefully in a couple of months. And another report I did, a special report I did for University of Indonesia on the special notice of Asia gig economy published by 360 Info. This paper was previously presented at the International Exchange between Asia and Africa, as you can see on the poster, developed on the suggestion and received from there. Gig economy, an old wine in a new bottle. The gig in the term gig economy refers back to short-term arrangement typical of musical events. However, now its definition ranges from traditional, non-traditional and loosely structured work arrangement to the one with more precise emphasis on tasks carried out through online platforms. So when gig work more or less have been there in the scene, it directs us to ask how this new work order is new in any way. Gig economy, as it takes predominance from the last decade, has set labor relations in flux, which has steadily metamorphosing towards a more dispersed, flexible and casual economic order forwarding the neoliberal capitalism. Now, capitalism stands as an extremely crucial vantage point to understand gig work. Comes out, it isn't as new as it sounds. From a historical perspective on capitalism, breaking up jobs into small, low-skilled tasks, on-demand work, piecework compensation, or an intermediary-based business model are nothing new to capitalism. Historicizing capitalism holds significant importance as capitalism is not a static or a given phenomena. Rather, it undergoes remarkable transformation over the years, as argued by Nancy Fraser. Therefore, what stands new in the gig economic order, and I emphasize, is not its intent or consequent implication, but its mode of operation and exploitation. It utilizes the democratized technology to tap the freelance or the on-demand labor in digitally informal ways. Webster Edward calls it platform capitalism, Flemings call it Uberization, and Harvey goes one step further to call the emergence of globalized economy as a platform itself. We can discuss these in the discussion part if time allows. Also, at this point, it is imperative to understand that gig work order is formed on the fertile grounds of increasing precarity and informalization of labor post-1970s liberalized process that took place in India. That the main reason for gig workers to continue signing up for platform is the lack of decent jobs. An overwhelming majority of workers interviewed for this process responded that gig work was neither their first choice of work nor a part-time or a supplementary work. This was their main source of income. Most of these workers joined platform because of either loss of their earlier work due to personal reason or the slowdown after COVID. Gig workers caught amid the conundrums of visibility and invisibility. Blinkit, which claims to be one of the largest e-commerce grocery companies of India and aims to be 100 times of its size in the next 5 years, proudly announces that its mission is to be instant commerce indistinguishable from magic. Further, it pledges to revolutionize e-commerce by making goods available to the customer in the blink of an eye. But the larger question remains how and at whose cost. When asked how the workers managed to deliver on time, a Blinkit worker who doesn't wish to be named said, quote unquote, "The pressure to deliver in 10 minutes as per the company's policy often leads to accident and injuries. However, if one encounters an accident, ill health or a family emergency and do not come to work for 2-3 days, even after informing the company, their IDs are still blocked and sometimes their accounts are permanently disabled." Now visible, now invisible. Now I have tried to explain the visibility and parallel invisibility in the following manner. On the visibility side, we can see demand and supply. On the demand side, we have multiple reports which suggest that there is a constant increase in the demand for workers, for delivery workers per se. Future Shoppers Report 2022 in India says that there is a strong expectation among the online shoppers to receive their deliveries as quickly as possible. Approximately 46% of the surveyed Indian shopper expressed this expectation, a rate which was highest globally. Another report by Statista in 2022 shows that the exponentially increasing daily orders received by leading food apps companies in India is constantly increasing. These reports shows the number and the workload of delivery workers are consistently rising, thus rendering them hyper visible. On the supply side, we have Niti Aayog's report, India's booming gig and platform economy, 2022, which indicates that in the fiscal year 2020 and 2021, approximately 7.7 million individuals were involved in gig economy. And the projection suggests that the gig force is anticipated to grow significantly, reaching to 23.5 among us millions workers by the fiscal year 2029 and 30. On the invisibility side, we see firstly the company, which deliberately calls them partners and not workers, added to the pathetic condition they work under with no effective grievance redressal mechanism in place. For customers, the workers complained that the customers often treat them with indignity and making them work extra. Additionally, if there is a ruffle between the customer and the workers, the customers prevails irrespectively. At the central level, as we will see in the later part of the paper as well, the union has filed multiple complaints and memorandums, but there was no response by the government, either by the state government or the central government. Even the seemingly progressive laws benefiting gig workers legitimize their position as non-workers. In extreme conditions of excessive rain and heat waves, when the center passes security guidelines, gig workers did not come under its ambit. Deepak, a Blinkit delivery worker who works in Rana Pratap Bagh area of Delhi, when asked about the safety issue, told, quote unquote, "Even if some accident or unfortunate incident happens, no senior still comes here. In the case of accident, we are compensated only when we have a bill from the government hospital or dispensary. How can you look for a government hospital when you are lying in the middle of the road with an arm or a leg broken?" Further, every 10 to 15 minutes during 8 to 10 hours of their work minimum, they are subjected to a relentless, harrowing notification sound from their app, which lasts for 5 to 6 seconds. The harsh, loud noise, which cannot be silenced or changed, causes server sleep disturbance and constant anxiety among the workers. Many workers report hallucinating that sound even in their sleep, waking up in absolute panic and reaching for their phones impulsively. Digital panopticon. Foucault builds on Bentham's panopticon to arrive to his idea of panopticism. As you can see in the picture, there is a watchtower in the middle which can see what's happening in the cells, but the people in the cells cannot see that they are being watched from someone in the watchtower. This arrangement induces a state of permanent visibility and constant surveillance, which makes body disciplined. This provides the framework to dissect the hollow claims of gig work being the propagator of individual liberty, flexibility, autonomy, choice, the rhetorics that are pushed forward by the company, where individuals are so-called being their bosses. Here in this paper, I argue that in the current scenario, panopticon in the digital platform with the store manager as the guard, aided by companies' policies and customers' feedback. As soon as the gig worker logins with the app, they are subjected to an external authority that translates customer demands into orders they need to execute, determines what task they need to execute, where and when, directly or indirectly determines how much money they will be paid for execution of such task, thus leaving them with almost nothing they can decide for themselves. Workers are made to function under incentive slabs, which change every day and changes from store to store. A worker explained that if they want the first slab of the incentive of around 300 rupees, they have to deliver around 25 to 30 orders before 12 in the noon, the next 20 orders by 4 p.m. for the next incentive slab, and so on and so forth. If they misses the target even by one order or a technical glitch, they loses the whole incentive, and incentive becomes the major part of their income. So if they are losing the incentive, they are left with nothing. Thus, there is no real choice as the incentive system, given their precarious position, pushes them to work more and for longer hours. When Rakesh Kumar, another Blinkit workers, 2 minutes, okay. I'll leave the quotation as of now. Responses of the union. To translate resentment into resistance becomes an extremely difficult task when nature of work is fragmented and mobile, with piecemeal tasks instead of collective, inducing strong atomization and individualization tendencies amongst the workers. The growing lack of clear employers' location, rendering jobs more borderless, poses difficulties for workers in both organizing efforts and their capacity to leverage labor laws and other legal protection. Individualism, insecurity, and precarity has always been decisive features of capitalism, and gig works here stands exaggerating them. Surya Prakash, who coordinates the app, painstakingly told, as most of them lead an economically challenging life, we need to think about how long they can afford to protest. Every day they protest counts as a wageable day lost. Abhishek, the General Secretary of AICCTU, Delhi, shared how the union has been organizing workers. To begin with, the organizers closely observe the working patterns of the work that gig workers perform across platforms. Having gained a firm hold of the issue, they start tracing the location where the workers could be found sitting on the streets or the roads. This is followed by a dialogue with the workers discussing their conditions and the internal functioning of the platform. A foundation of trust is thus built, and with constant support and compassion, and the idea of unionization, strength and impact of collective action is discussed with the workers, and that is how the union grows. The union fought extensively, as you can see in the pictures, against the Blinkit's arbitrary pay structure, leading to significant dents in workers' income. For almost a week in April 2023, the Blinkit app showed services as temporarily unavailable as hundreds of delivery workers went on strike. Okay, I'll just rush through it. On the right side, we can see an Instagram post by the union. On the left side, we can see a memorandum that was submitted to the union, to the center conclusively. These are the three main conclusions. I'll just quickly run through. The deliberate misclassification of workers as freelancers, allowing companies to evade labor laws and shrinking responsibility towards the workers. Second, the maintenance of sizable pool of workers who compete for work and orders, driving down their incomes and enabling companies to offer services at lower prices. And lastly, the bargaining power of workers is further reduced and it stands at its lowest ebb. The key facilitator are the number of unemployed workers and the absence of regulatory checks, which empowers the company to operate in such a manner. They can attract customers by providing inexpensive goods, services, utilizing technology in ways that dehumanize and make invisible the human workers delivering the service. Thank you. These are the few limitations and further scope of study. Caste, in-depth study of the workers' app and social reproduction. We can talk about them in the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Anjali. Over to you, Avik.
Just to intervene also, sorry for the question you said. So every speaker gets 15 minutes in total. A buzzer will be done with the 12th minute and then...
Sure. Thank you, Anjali, and thank you so much, CTC, for having me here. So, this paper of mine, this paper of mine interrogates the impact of technologization on West Bengal's agrarian economy by embarking on a closer look at the linkages between the development of productive forces and the transformation of social organization of labor in the countryside. The introduction of commercial cultivation in 19th century Bengal entailed the reconstruction of rural society on the lines of gender. Although women and children implicated in household production intensified their labor much like their male elders did, they stopped short of factoring in the relations of exchange. Thus, laboring activity of women counted only as the production of use values directed towards fulfilling the necessities of social reproduction rather than to the ends of commercial exchange. But it is noteworthy that the post-harvest processing of rice conducted by landless peasant women in the homesteads of their richer neighbors constituted their only customary means of wage labor, which was massively hit following the intervention of capital in this stage of production. Given the cultural prescriptions on women's mobility outside their homestead, men started to dominate the workforce of these milling units, while women were reabsorbed into agriculture. Upon alluding to such technical changes in rice processing in rural West Bengal since the 1970s that expelled a record number of women from wage work, I probe its implications for the social organization of household production. By anchoring my work in heterodox Marxist social theory, I broach the following questions. Firstly, how can the problem of technologization of agricultural commodity production be read in the light of the unfolding of capitalism in West Bengal's countryside? Secondly, how does the technologization of certain stages of the production process perpetuate the sexual division of labor? And thirdly, how can the household be conceptualized as a quote-unquote productive organism that creates a certain laboring subject rationalized by the gendered ideologies of service and love, which becomes fundamental for the reproduction of capitalism in the countryside? Marx's critical theory of capitalism posits an antinomy internal to the logic of modern society between an increase in material wealth through the development of productive forces and the magnitude of value that is measured by the socially necessary labor expended in the production of a commodity per unit time. This experiential distinction between the technical and the social that presupposes a historically specific form of social totality called capital becomes integral towards uncovering the subordination of household production to the structures of accumulation. By taking the smallholding peasant household as the object of this study, I elaborate on how the dispossession of male agricultural workers from the means of production into the industrial unit led to the feminization of agricultural activity, such that the female agricultural worker now intensified her labor time to reproduce the landholding household alongside her immediate family. Although the participation of women in productive process does not apparently enable her to acquire cash income, in an economic system marked by both the vertical and horizontal concentration of producers, her production of surplus value is mobilized by both her landholder as well as her husband to acquire the wages from the capitalist. Thus, once the social reproductive necessities fulfilled by her are subsumed to capital, the female agricultural worker gets subordinated to the complexities of economic and gendered hierarchies that can be grasped only once the abstractions of capitalist social relations are sufficiently perused. Between October 2022 and February 2024, I conducted a series of ethnographic interviews in situ at a peasant household situated in the community development block of Jangipara in West Bengal. The Hussains are widely regarded as the Parvenu smallholding peasants of the Pathan clan. The contemporary family owned 8 bigha, which is like 1 hectare, of arable demesne loosely attached to a two-storied concrete residential building that stood like an island in a sea of huts that housed a reserve of agricultural workers belonging to the Sheikh clan. In the late 1970s, the Hossains started employing improved technology in the production of Boro paddy using high-yielding variety HYV seeds, which no doubt increased the output. However, the following decade witnessed the proliferation of illegal huller mills, which speeded up the husking process by many times. Till the 1990s, the Hossains patronized 5 sheikh families whose members, including post-pubescent children, were called upon to perform a host of pre-harvest and pre-milling activities such as weeding, seeding, transplanting, soaking, parboiling, and drying conducted in and around the Demesne land. On the other hand, post-harvest processes which included husking, sieving and winnowing comprised the waged component of the labor of sheikh women who controlled a single foot-operated dheki in rotation. After the processing in the huller mills became the accepted standards by the late 1980s, the Hossains started sending their rice to these highly mechanized setups where the costs of processing were 12 times lesser than that of the hammer mode. As the workforce of these milling units tended to masculinize, cultural inhibitions on mobility forced sheikh women to intensify their labor time in household production much beyond the prevailing norm of necessary 12 hours of work per day. More so, the cultivation of high-value crops like fruits and vegetables required good quality seeds that were frequently prone to pest attack, which in turn demanded a disciplined agricultural labor reserve devoted to the maximum possible care. In addition to that, these women were also often asked to perform sporadic labor for the landholding family, which included cleaning the house, shopping, gardening, and tending the livestock. Until the late 1980s, the Hossains had supplied both cash as wages and prepared or raw food to their dependents, an arrangement which came to a standstill after the male workers were by and large displaced from agriculture. In decades to come, the Hossains would, however, continue to contribute in cash to their former male dependents on occasions when the latter struggled with paying their children's education debts, costs of house renovation, and the bride price or dowry. Since transactions in cash against full-time agricultural work were previously conducted between the Hossains and the Sheikh men, under the new arrangement, food crops like cereals, pulses, and seasonal vegetables purchased by the family, that is the landholding family, instead of money payments, were periodically supplied to sheikh women attached to the demesne. For these pauperized women situated lowest in the hierarchy, the system appeared extremely exploitative. As the adverse pressures of the market induced constant increments in the productive level, the intensification of labor by the woman did not necessarily ensure a commensurate increase in the profit margin for the smallholding peasant. After the Hossains made the decision to switch to the cultivation of potato, brinjal, and citrus, the paddy acreage reduced considerably, and rice came to be produced for subsistence, especially to feed their dependents. By the year 2001, encouraged by the high output of these food commodities that chased urban consumer demands, the Hossains stopped producing paddy altogether. Once paddy production came to a halt, the dheki was abandoned too. While the costs of production of these high-value crops have risen substantially in recent times, farm gate prices have not undergone a proportionate increase. In case of increase in prices, benefits tend to reach the middlemen rather than the farmers, and rendering the cultivation of crops like potato unprofitable with passing time. While problems pertaining to the lack of high-quality seeds and the unavailability of integrated pest and vector management technologies remain, farmers struggle to access institutional credit facilities that require ownership over a minimum acreage and proper records to substantiate for the same. As a result, they are regularly forced to borrow from the moneylender at exorbitant interest rates. Because potatoes are grown for selling in the market, the lack of formal credit constrains the ability of the peasantry to further the improvement of land, which in turn adversely impacts the reproduction of agricultural work itself. In fact, when channels of borrowing meant to purchase high-quality seeds and arrange for adequate pest control start to exhaust, the sustenance of the peasant household demands the sheikh woman to increase the levels of productivity. Under conditions of mechanical and technical precarity, where ongoing increments in the normative productive level need not translate to equivalent returns to labor, the lengthening of the working day by the women workers denigrates their lives and subordinates them to both the smallholding peasant and to the wage-earning husbands who control the accumulation process. This abstract domination of time that restricts individual mobility usually forces assetless women to seek employment as casual workers in the various micro-industrial sites such as parboiling yards, apart from the huller mills, in the process subjecting them to constant stigmatization. Although such women are allured by the promise of individual mobility that cash income brings forth, they are often pigeonholed into the hypersexualized stereotype of the, quote, available woman, unquote. It is noteworthy that the factory and the field offer two polar opposite semiotics of productive activity. Other than the secluded enclosure of the mill, women's work in factory was believed to encourage promiscuous behavior, degrade her moral character, and make them neglect their moral duties. For that matter, I was informed by one of my respondents that the constant accompaniment of the husband in the bygone days of combined agricultural work actually subjected both him and the wife to a self-enforced regimen of discipline that roused effective bonds of conjugal support in the site of production, which foreclosed any remote possibility of the wife, quote, going astray, unquote, quote, seeking recreation outside marriage, unquote, or being, quote, touched by other men, unquote. On the other hand, following the displacement of sheikh men from the homestead, cultivation became more of a feminized activity that allowed powerful sororal relations to develop between the sheikh women. That made them shoulder the roles of midwives and child rearers to one another in times of distress, emergency, or otherwise. So to conclude, unlike tenant farmers, the relationship between the smallholding peasant and the agricultural worker is not bound by any formal cost or crop sharing arrangement regulated by law, which at times cause the latter to undergo harrowing levels of surplus value extraction under the modes of production that are resistant to technical changes. In cases where the male workers are increasingly alienated from agricultural activity altogether, the woman is haplessly attached to hereditary service, a disavowal of which may invite even the threat of eviction. No doubt such realities frustrate the likelihood of a real working class movement in Bengal. Despite agricultural workers comprising the bulk of agricultural population in the state, their demands for minimum wages have been incessantly sidestepped, while their interests manipulated to foster the dominance of the erstwhile CPM supporting middle peasantry in all walks of public or rural life. In present times, the momentous switch of this latter class, that is the middle peasantry, to the cultivation of high-value crops, forestry, livestock and fisheries, redirects our attention to the material conditions of agricultural laborers whose labor is more often than not targeted to effect such innovative improvements. In West Bengal, where smallholding cultivation has been standardized by the customary fragmentation of paternal property, I'll just conclude. Agricultural workers do not own assets in land, and in most cases, their homesteads are attached to that of the occupancy peasants. Hence, the fine line distinction between domestic labor and non-domestic unpaid labor becomes blurred, which normalizes the extraction of surplus value from women workers by drawing in rationales for the same. Under the system of vertical integration of producers, female agricultural workers like that of the sheikhs comprise the lowest rung of the hierarchy who are cut off from the ultimate exchange relations. Notwithstanding the overt modalities of the expansion of the sacrificial ideology of service that binds the woman worker to the peasant household, she also perhaps embodies the unalienated labor of love by performing a host of domestic activities towards reproducing her husband's wage-earning capacity and nurturing the productive skills of her children. But it is no secret that even within her own immediate family, she undergoes covert forms of discrimination pertaining to the distribution of food, medicines, and recreational necessities, including the burden to adopt birth control technologies. The lack of the access to immediate sources of monetary income constrain their capacity to accumulate, which forecloses her decision-making power both within the site of production and inside her immediate family. So here I rest my case. Thank you.
Thank you, Dhananjay. Thank you, CTC, for giving me this opportunity to share my views on Adivasi and the Adivasi mobilization and the role of technology and the situation of hierarchy in this context. So basically, when I'm using the term Adivasi, I just want to make this thing clear that it is a heterogeneous category, and we cannot say that there are only few groups and all these groups are sharing similar kind of educational level or economic level. There are groups, we can say that some groups are living in urban areas, some groups are dependent on forest resources and agriculture, and some other groups are living the life of hunter-gatherers. So basically, when I'm trying to argue about the role of technology, of course I'm not going to talk about the technology in the sense of which is coming in the sense of development project kind of technology. I will focus on those technologies which have been used to communicate from one person to another person. So internet, mobile phone, and other social media mediums which actually emerged largely in 21st century. So largely I'll try to argue that technology is non-teleological, as Dhananjay put it as a question, and also there is need to democratize it. I will try to present two case studies. In one case study, I will try to show that actually technology was used in a positive way to mobilize tribals for their rights, and in this context, I will discuss the case study of the enactment of Forest Rights Act 2006. I was doing PhD on this particular topic, and I can say, a participant of the whole process. And the second case study is related to the working of Vanvasi Kalyan Ashram. So first thing which I want to mention about the enactment of Forest Rights Act was that the process started from 1999 onwards, and then in 2005 the bill was presented in the parliament in December 2005. The title of the bill was Scheduled Tribes Recognition of Forest Rights Bill 2005. And I hope all of you know that actually there was no social media kind of thing, no Facebook, no WhatsApp in that point of time, but basically the whole mobilization was based on some grassroots organization, and there was an umbrella kind of organization, Campaign for Survival and Dignity. So the structure was that there was a central organization, Campaign for Survival and Dignity, and then there were many grassroots organizations, state level organizations, and then grassroots organizations. So actually they created a email group, Forest Rights Group, and I was also part of that group. So when the bill was presented in the parliament, there were many limitations. So many activists at the grassroots level demanded many modification, many revisions in the bill. And one point was raised that actually it is just related to scheduled tribes, and all forest dwelling communities are not part of the category of scheduled tribes. So there is need to include other groups too. And this demand was raised by the leaders of Tharuk email group played an important role in it. There were many changes in the bill and the act became more progressive. I'm not going in the detail of all those changes, but what we have to remember is that, for example, for OTFD, the cutoff date changed for 3 generations and 75 years. But ST in the bill, the cutoff date was 24th October 1980. But when Act was passed, it changed from 24th October 1980 to 13th December 2005 when the act was passed, a bill was presented in the parliament. My point here is that we can simply find a positive role of technology here, but limitation was that most of the communication in that group was in English. And also, most of the participants in those discussions were those middle class activists who had sympathetic view for tribal rights, but they could only express themselves in English, and no tribal activist, or I would say that 99% activists were middle class activists, non-tribal activists. Perhaps one or two tribal activists could participate in that discussion. So that was a limitation, but since the whole process was based on dialogue, it worked for a positive cause, and it actually enabled a campaign for survival and dignity to change the nature of the bill and made it more progressive. Now I'll come to Vanvasi Kalyan Ashram. Vanvasi Kalyan Ashram was formed in 1952 by Ramakant Deshpande, and it is a tribal wing of Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. And if we see the organizational structure of Vanvasi Kalyan Ashram, till 1995, Ramakant Deshpande was the president of Vanvasi Kalyan Ashram. Of course, he was a non-tribal. But after that, they changed their pattern. So there is a president, earlier Jagdev Ram, and after that Ramchandra Kharadi. Both of them Ramchandra Kharadi is still working as president, and he is a tribal. Jagdev Ram Urao was also a tribal. But there is a post of organization secretary, and this organization secretary post is generally occupied by a non-tribal person. So when we think about the use of technology by Vanvasi Kalyan Ashram, and I did some research on it. Since I was researching on this topic, I was also part of some groups, and some messages were sent to me also regarding their their promotion of their work or their ideological stance, etc. And I also scanned their Facebook pages, their YouTube channels. So I just wants to underline some features of their social media materials. Okay, so first one, and we can find that how they are using social media or new kind of technologies in last 7, 8, 9 years to promote their ideology. So first kind, I have just categorized these messages. So first is the messages tell about various seva or service works like school, medical services, etc. by the Vanvasi Kalyan Ashram. Second kind of messages criticize the conversion by Christian missionaries, and they always emphasize on this point that actually Christian missionaries are doing a negative work in tribal areas, and they have through these messages emphasized on this idea of delisting. What is the meaning of delisting? The meaning of delisting is that those Adivasis who have converted to some other religion, primarily Islam or Christianity, they should be excluded from the list of scheduled tribes. So in such messages, they focus on these demands. Third, there are messages that focus on Hindu festivals, celebrate different Hindu gods, and show them as an integral part of the tribal society. Fourth, certain messages are related to tribal festivals like Sarhul and some other festivals. So the whole pattern of their work is that they are not saying that tribals are Hindus, and so they have to accept everything which is coming from Hindus. They are emphasizing on this point that actually we, means those who are non-tribals, should accept many things which are coming from tribal society. So they celebrate their festivals too. Fifth, some messages celebrate the lives of known or less known tribal freedom fighters. In all such messages, such figures are presented as Hindu and stringent opponents of Christian missionaries. And it is interesting that they never celebrate Jaipal Singh Munda. For them, Birsa Munda is a hero. But the reason for presenting him as a hero is not that he fought against Britishers. Of course, this is a part of their messages, but the larger point is that actually he opposed Christian missionaries. He fought against Christian missionaries, and they always try to emphasize that actually there is need to oppose such forces which are creating some kind of divide in Hindu society, because tribal for them, I mean for Vanvasi Kalyan Ashram, are Hindus. So they have YouTube channels, they have many Facebook pages, and Facebook pages are like any state level organization of VKA or state level constituent organization of VKA can create a Facebook page, and they largely try to present their messages on the pattern which I discussed earlier. And their idea is to actually create some kind of Hindu identity of tribals. Through their YouTube channels, they present discussions related to it. Now the point is that, of course, these messages are not very much for tribal youths, for those tribal youths who have Android cell phones or internet, they can consume it. But I think these messages are primarily for their workers, their activists. So we can find again that most of the activists, or at least 60% of the activists of Vanvasi Kalyan Ashram, are non-tribals. They are coming from different parts of country, primarily from Maharashtra, and they are trying to create a consciousness about Hindu identity among tribals. So they are trying to find tribal youths, and of course tribal workers are also working for them. But the larger idea is to give, through use of technology, give some kind of some arguments or some ideological inputs to activists, so that they can spread the message of Vanvasi Kalyan Ashram to common tribal people. Now my point is that when I'm arguing that technology is non-teleological, I'm trying to emphasize that we cannot say that technology is bad, necessarily bad, or necessarily good, because the same technology has been used by in last few years by many organizations to oppose organizations like Vanvasi Kalyan Ashram. Vanvasi Kalyan Ashram is using it. There is an organization, Akhil Bharatiya Vanjan Shramjeevi Sangathan, Akhil Bharatiya Vanjeevi Shramik Sangathan. So it organized during COVID period, when Forest Department demolished houses of tribal people, one Gujars, in one national park. Then it organized an online meeting using Zoom to protest this kind of demolition of houses during COVID period. So my point here is that there are groups which are using these technologies for democratic cause to protect the interest of tribal people. And we should also remember that gradually more and more tribal youths are using such technologies. And again, we can say that there is a positive side, that tribals, if they are not participating in any kind of political activities, they can use these forums, these mediums, to spread their culture all over the world. Or we can also say that actually they can be influenced by the culture which is coming from outside of the tribal society. So basically what we have to remember is that there is need to democratize the technological knowledge. And the most important thing in this regard is that the question of language is important. The question of the understanding of different aspects or different use of technology is also necessary. Because if you think about use of technology from the perspective of a state, you can find that actually it makes those people who are using this technology more legible for the state. It is really easy to control people. A state can control people from urban areas, a state can control people from rural areas. Any person who is using this technology is under the scan of a state. we can say that earlier the situation was not anything different, but of course with cell phone, we know, or with emails, internet, we know that now things are much easier for state. And we also know that if people are opposing some state-sponsored development projects, they are using democratic means, constitutional means. In that case too, state can use some argument based on one email or based on one membership of a particular WhatsApp group and arrest many activists. It happened in recent past. So my point here is very simple, that if we give or if we create a situation where marginalized people will also get knowledge about these technologies, they could use it in a positive way, or at least they will be more conscious about the positive or negative use of such technologies. So I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you, Kamal, and thank you, Kamal. Over to Apple for your comments.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, presenters. My comments come questions. Thank you. So my comments come questions have three different rationales in all the three papers that I had an opportunity to read. Pointers that have been touched upon but need a deeper probing, concepts that have been uncritically merged and need to be separated, and a few general wonderings, if you will, that can be academically organized and answered. Let us start with Anjali's paper. What socio-economic and policy factors drive the high relevance of gig work in India, and how do these factors exacerbate the exploitation of gig workers? How does continuous digital surveillance impact the mental health, job satisfaction, and overall well-being of these gig workers? And how do the dynamics of digital labor platforms and their business models challenge traditional labor theories and frameworks? For Avik's paper, how have specific technological changes in agricultural practices impacted different socio-economic groups within West Bengal, beyond the general focus of this paper on female labor? What empirical evidence is available to illustrate the direct effects of mechanization on the livelihoods and daily lives of female agricultural workers in specific communities? And lastly, how do contemporary policy changes such as shifts in land ownership or agricultural subsidies interact with technological advancements to affect gendered labor dynamics in rural West Bengal? For Kamal Nayan's paper, firstly, how does the paper account for the role of transnational technology corporations in shaping the technological hierarchies that affect Adivasi communities? And how does it address the power dynamics between these corporations and the local activist groups? Secondly, in what ways does the analysis consider the influence of historical colonial legacies on contemporary technological access and mobilization strategies among Adivasi people? Lastly, does the paper adequately explore the potential for indigenous knowledge systems to both challenge and integrate with existing technological frameworks, and how might this integration alter the power structures within these technologies? Apart from these, the papers naturally deal with some very unique concepts, and it is my belief that these questions could provide a richer context for understanding the issues that the presenters have outlined. Thank you.
This is the third day of the colloquium, I think 0, 1 and 2, so third day. And this is the perhaps last session, I think, then we'll have extended discussion. So the opportunity for those who have not raised even a single question first, please ask, this is the last opportunity. And then we come to the others who are asking, and they will have their own right to ask. But first to those who have not asked anything since last 2 days.
I have spoken, but I haven't asked, so I'll just ask. Now my comment, actually question for Avik. What I wanted to understand, and I'm sure the paper will look into, I mean, if I got to read the paper, I might have answered to it, but is this change that you are looking at using Marxian categories, is this happening within, if we go back to the old mode of production kind of idea, is it happening within a pure capitalist mode of production, or there are remnants of, you know, whatever else which is not fully capitalist?
I fit in the criterion. I think I am asking for the first time, though I coordinated one panel. My question is the previous question, that it's a Marxian mode on the one hand, and I missed the introductory remarks made by Dhananjay that it is non-teleological. The Marxian notion is not without power. I wonder, where to locate this non-teleological framework? Does this non-teleological view or emphasis without power, or it incorporates power in a different way? So this is a methodological question, because he asked Marxian model, Marxian presentation, but on the other hand, the chair says that non-teleological. The emphasis is non-teleological. So is there any connection? Marxism, as we know, it talks about power, it talks about exploitation. Where do you locate non-teleological understanding of the different papers presented? Secondly, I agree with the discussant that power is missing. You know, all three presentations. I'm sorry to say, I don't want to offend anybody, but I find that everybody is talking about critics. Nobody is talking about crisis. You know, we are just consciously or unconsciously evading the question of crisis. Everybody is talking how that critics, a very sophisticated understanding, this politics of critique without addressing crisis is a dangerous trend we are encountering these days. You know, so the power, the discussant hinted at, that needs to be addressed. Thank you.
I think they will answer, but I assume that there is a consensus on the crisis, but they will speak on crisis. Yeah, over to you. Just 1 second. Anyone from the left side? Yeah.
The old one?
No, old one. No. I mean, yes, yours.
My question is from Avik. You talked about the mechanization of agriculture that led to the easier or better role for women, but a heavier role at household work. So I'm more like a comment. The household work has been there already from early on, but which get multiplied during the agricultural season, especially during the sowing seasons. The paddy cultivation in sowing season is very tough according to my observation, but I think the mechanization only has benefited the role of male, and the mechanization has not led much benefits for the women, because that paddy cultivation is very tiresome work for women during the sowing season. So there is still the lack of mechanization for women in sowing season. Thank you.
Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, sir. I'm Alpna. I have done Masters from Political Science. I'm currently preparing for jobs. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a question for Kamal. Just a very focused question. I mean, since the panel is about social hierarchies and you're looking at the Adivasis in a particular context, is there a possibility of situating the responses within the group that you have chosen and situating those responses in terms of a contrast and a comparison with other social groupings? Because in itself, we wouldn't really know much about, how the responses of political action, political organization of the Adivasis differ from other social groups, since we are focusing on hierarchy. I mean, if you could just, elaborate on that.
My name is Avik Sarkar and I'm a doctoral researcher at Center of Political Studies, JNU. And my question is to Anjali. From a more semiotic or hermeneutical tradition, I wanted to understand when you're talking about delivery partners. So, in the relationship with the companies, so I'm a little lost. I'm sorry. Yeah. So there's this relationship, right? And when we are talking about delivery partners, so there is this partnership sort of a thing. So is that in a legal sense that this relationship is sort of? I'm so sorry.
Take your time.
2 minutes break. Can we get back to you?
Yeah, I just had a clarification that the chair and the third speaker spoke about non-teleology of technology.
Clarification from me?
No, I'd like to offer this, that was it meant that technology is neutral and it can be used both ways?
I think I am the origin of problem, so give me 1 second. This was a posture that can be considered technology as a non-teleological, and here we had a great opportunity to demystify technology from Hegelian lens. That was the concern, but I think that is generating different impact.
My question is to Kamal sir. Sir, you mentioned that many of the right-wing activists and pracharas have been using technology to train their volunteers in order to mobilize the Adivasis and the stereotypes there. So I was wondering if this use of technology to train volunteers in a certain sense, allowing them to, from different states, that is, so someone from Maharashtra coming in a particular site and wherever your field site was, is this allowing the mobilizer to also change their own subjectivities and be a lot more sensitive to the issues of the tribal people? Which is to say that technology then is actively changing the political subjectivities of not only the tribals, which is the target population to be changed and brought into the Hindu fold, but also the very person who's mobilizing it.
I also have one. There's a question. My question is to Kamal sir. So we have seen that there are many YouTube channels and Twitter handles that are representing Adivasis issues from Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh and adjoining areas. But and they are representing local issues and bringing those issues in the light of the mainstream. They're trying to bring light on those issues. So how sustainable are these platforms, like using YouTube and X? Because we have seen that in the blink of an eye, these accounts get suspended or gets restricted in YouTube. So how sustainable are these platforms, and are they really gonna replace the physical form of solidarities and activism?
First time, so
second time actually.
Please go ahead and ask.
So my question is to Kamal Nayan sir. Sir, since you have talked about online campaigns aimed at Adivasi audience, then I would like you to expand on your proposition for technological knowledge to Adivasi. Are you saying that Adivasis should participate in these discourses to contest them? And did you observe any contentious response to this whole Manvasi Kalyan Ashram's propaganda already? That's my question.
what is that?
Are there already any contentious responses to this propaganda that Manvasi Kalyan Ashram? Yeah.
In terms of, I wanted to ask, in terms of the use of technology,
to create an aspirational world for the tribal, who so far would have been happy with perhaps, I mean, maybe it's a mythological or imaginary understanding with his life. How has the NGO played a role in this? That now the tribal wants to sort of get out of his lifestyle, because I mean our earlier speaker Avik showed how industrialization didn't necessarily bring happiness to the farming communities of so same way with the tribal. Thank you.
Yeah, it's very important to also discuss the techno-managerial state. We all understand that state is not all that naive, nor neutral, nor is technology. Ideologically unconscious. It's very important to understand that. So, in the name of democratizing technology, what the state has constantly been doing is reproducing technology to convince people that it is for equality, liberty, on all democratic principles that democracy stands for. And it's been very important and a powerful power to strengthen patriarchy in the name of technology. Gender division of labor have got strengthened in technocratic agriculture. So the moment you bring technology, you know that women are not just oppressed and suppressed, but they are also disorganized. So technology mobilizes, it also disorganizes. You've said that, but it is up to the discretionary and prerogative power of the state that it is going to use. So you have a situation where there's going to be a crisis or a riot, you cut your internet and that suspended network is suspended, so you don't allow people to even communicate. Bad communication is suspended. What is so visible and so invisible, I don't think it stands out that clear, because you always want to see what you want to see, and you don't see what you don't want to see. And if you want to see, your heart should feel for that. We all know this. So invisibility and visibility is very thin, and the line is blurred. Actually, it is a subjective reflection. And we know that technology cannot be understood in abstraction nor in objective abstraction. So that's my idea. You'll have to interpret and reinterpret on those lines. Thank you.
Yes, sir. This question is to Avik Sarkar. I really liked your paper. For the graphic detail that you gave stepwise as to how women's labor gets fed into the system of agriculture production within a capitalist system. But what future do you see?
Yeah. So does the using of the word delivery partners change the relationship between employer and workers in a legal sense, because there is no partnership but only exploitation? So that's my question. Thank you.
Footnote or main question?
No, question, just question.
Okay.
I made the Hey, just to Avik, I just wanted to ask, are you contesting division of division of labor in itself, or just the differential impact of introduction of technology on division of labor? Thank you.
Differential impact. Okay. Yeah, this is a traditional way of saying you will have 1 minute, but you will take 3-4 minutes. So please go ahead.
If you say 1 minute, you will take 5 minutes.
Okay, as far as your question is concerned, yeah. So the sowing season, yeah. But the problem here is that once these men are displaced from agriculture, the agriculture is totally becoming a feminized activity altogether. And given the fact that also the land reforms in West Bengal, West Bengal is known for its celebrated land reforms. But how many of you know that land reforms affected only 8% of the total cultivated land in Bengal? If you read Barbara Harris-White and Anirban Karak has a recent work on that. So it did not actually affect any of the if I may use the word feudal mode of production of that sort. Okay, so Professor Dasgupta, your question about the capitalist mode of production. So most of my work is actually based on the heterodox Marxism of Jairus Banerjee, who argues that from the Deccan commodity production that there can be capitalism even in a countryside, because when the moneylender he advances the money, so that actually acts as a mystifying form of a wage, and the profit actually acts as an interest payment. Okay, so in those relations, he is actually contesting the orthodox Marxism of Prabhat Patnaik and Utsho Patnaik. Okay. So that is the thing. And about the future of, I don't see really any future in West Bengal. Leave alone even labor union movement. There is no agricultural workers union, and currently the ruling party in the state, they are not very much predisposed to support labor's rights. It's not that the left were just some kind of great defenders of. In fact, even during the left, the dominance of the middle peasantry was magnified to such an extent that that it was only the middle peasantry that were in the organization of the left parties, CPM or CPM, whatever. And the gender, yeah, I was just elaborating on the differential impact of gender division.
So about the legality and the policy aspect of gig work, we see that freedom and choice are the two rhetorics that is being pushed forward by neoliberalism. And I would like to take a dig into Marx Capital, Volume 1, and he says that workers are free in a double sense. Firstly, they are free to choose work, and secondly, they are free of means of capital. So neoliberalism pushes forward gig work under this rhetoric of choice, which doesn't make it arrive into the legal aspects. On the side of policy, we see Rajasthan gig work policy, Tamil Nadu gig work policies, and even the 4 labor codes that the government has brought. All these laws has legitimized the non-worker status of gig work, and also I would specifically like to deal with the first labor code, industrial dispute, which has in practicality, it is de-unionizing the labor movement. So earlier we have only the essential industries union had to give a pre-notice for legal strikes. But now under this labor code, every union has to give a pre-condition as to strike, which has delegitimized the very essence of labor movement and labor strikes. Then on the impact of traditional labor theories, I see there is a ruffle between the traditional theories. I mean, Nancy Fraser says that the old is dying and new cannot be born. So I feel that there is this ruffle going on within the neoliberal capitalism, where the earlier theories are trying to push forward their views, but also they are getting impacted by the technological advancement that we are going through. So that would be it.
Can I just add a question for him, since if you could give me please one reference for a good study which looks at the Vanvasi ashram. I mean, I'm assuming you have done something, but if you could just give me.
Okay, so the one thing I want to mention here is that when I was talking about the communication related technology and it's used by or they're used by tribal movements or tribal mobilization. The sense was not that it is the only way. I mentioned that Campaign for Survival and Dignity and other organizations used email groups kind of forum to discuss things, but it was not the only way to mobilize tribal people. But it also played an important role. So they actually organized dharna at several levels, state level, also in Delhi, and they mobilized tribal people from grassroots to Delhi. Now, similarly, when we think about Vanvasi Kalyan Ashram, what we have to remember is that Vanvasi Kalyan Ashram is doing many things, and use of social media, use of Facebook, WhatsApp groups, YouTube is just one way or few ways apart from some other ways to mobilize tribal people. So my argument was, I think, and I want to underline it again, that actually tribal people, if they know the positive and negative side of technology, they can also engage with these technologies or use these technologies, even though they are coming from the state or capitalist class, in their own favor. And as I mentioned, there are examples where these groups used it for their own benefit. And the another thing is that when we think about a dialogue based on social media platforms or dialogue from other organizations, we can find that many groups have changed their stand on several issues. So I want to give one example of Vanvasi Kalyan Ashram, who earlier largely focused on Hindu identity of tribals. It is still doing the same thing, but it has changed its stand on tribal rights. So it is supporting rights given by Forest Rights Act, PESA. It is opposing all kind of displacement. It is opposing, forced imposition of development model in tribals. So it changed itself. Okay, so it seems that it is a positive side of Vanvasi Kalyan Ashram, though I found that actually the core issue is same, and the core issue is opposition of Christian missionaries, and creating some kind of divide in Adivasi areas so that there would be dominance of Hindutva ideology. The another thing is that several YouTubers or other people who are resisting the dominant narratives, tribal YouTube platforms are also facing several kind of problems, but they are continuously using these platforms to actually circulate their messages. Okay, so one way or other. So I think the problem is same for tribal YouTubers as other YouTubers are facing, who are actually opposing the dominant narrative of a state or Hindutva ideology or RSS BJP. And then there is no one focused study of on Vanvasi Kalyan Ashram. I have tried to write a book, and I hope it will be published soon, so I'll send a copy to you. And then about other questions we'll discuss outside the seminar. Thank you.
So you had some questions? No. So we will and his book is coming in 25 March on this. Pre-advertisement you could have done. Pre-publication advertisement. Anyway, we had some queries and concerns, and I think the idea of dead labor is very, very relevant. That is the technology in that sense. And we see the exploitation of labor. So technology is not unmediated zone, but it is also non-teleological concept in a different sense. In all three presentations, we could see that there is a creation of the object of subject and also subject of object. We have debated on the nature of state, but I would like to all of you to respond to Trivedi for 30 seconds even on the crisis. What do you think by the crisis in which you would like to locate your problems? So we have debated on the nature of state, and this panel brilliantly highlighted the functioning of the state without abandoning the nature of state. In this narration, there is a workers' resistance, cost of resistance, there is a male alienation, there is a reduction of women into hereditary services. Technological intervention could not discard the male domination in rural Bengal. In case of Adivasis, technology is both power to and power over. What I could see that these two concepts are there in this in their presentation, and these concepts are power to and power over. And the power to is in a sense that giving agency to act, and the power over that they are themselves controlled or attacked from the top in terms of functioning. So in a certain way, there was, in all three presentations, we had power to and the power over. But I think if you would like to add 30 seconds to crisis would be great end of this panel.
Okay, so the crisis in my paper was largely around the crisis of market prices. Farmers are not getting, and then they are shifting to agricultural industrial work. But the larger crisis, the deeper crisis, is the crisis within the household, and the crisis is more of a psychological one, because women themselves, when they are intensifying their labor, women themselves are predisposed to have this notion that the work that they are doing is not actually productive work,
Thank you.
It's traditional work, something like that. So that Kumkum Sangari has a...
One second.
Chai we have.
You are not talking of crisis.
We are very late.
So, but there was a suggestion, I discussed it, that what has happened to other rest of Bengal.
Okay, rest of Bengal.
That, power, specific mention of power, and you are not taking the larger ramifications of that.
Power of
then that is a real problem.
30 seconds.
So if we broadly see, capitalism has three fundamental features: profit, primitive accumulation, and creation of binaries. At the present moment, we see that the binaries between worker and non-worker is being created, and that, I believe, is a point of contention or a point of crisis, that who a legitimate worker is and what the consequent rights he or she may be having.
So of course there is a crisis. The crisis is that if you are a member of Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh and you are doing all kind of negative things on digital platforms, no one is going to stop you. And the other crisis is that even though Vanwasi Kalyan Ashram is supporting that Forest Rights Act should be implemented properly, PESA should be implemented properly, there should be no displacement, at least forced displacement, and VKA, Vanwasi Kalyan Ashram, is a constituent organization of Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh is the most powerful organization of this country, which is handling some or many people are saying Bharatiya Janata Party. But even all these things are there. The all other things, negative things, violation of FRA, PESA, displacement, all things are going on. So I think this is the crisis.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And you make an announcement.
Thank you so much to all the panelists. So we'll break for tea right now, and we'll be back by 4:15 for the next and the final session, which is the annual roundtable. Thank you so much.
Let me also thank Nawal and Sada who contributed to the panel.